Hi and welcome to the Raw Talks Editor's Comments. I am Åsa Borssén, the series host of Raw Talks.
I'm Nick Di Boscio, Editor-in-Chief.
Nick, we're sitting here with 1 year under our belt. Raw Talks has had numerous guests, a diverse set of themes and diverse angles of different themes. What have been Raw Talks' highlights so far? And let's start with policy.
Yes, indeed. We have a lot of people, a lot of different angles. On policy, it's useful to remind ourselves that the overarching policy framework for a long time has been that of the resource curse theory, which effectively either implicitly or explicitly argues against natural resources. So it's been very welcoming to hear Graham Davids talking about his experience as a researcher, going back to data and actually making the point that he and his colleague could not find statistical evidence to back up the claims of the resource curse. So I think it's fair to say that at best it's an open question. What we have seen is that the policy question has been then shifting from one that asks whether extractive industries are good or bad to one that asks in which circumstances they are good, in which circumstances they are bad. There's a shift towards what is happening in each place and what can you learn from those circumstances. That has been driving a new thinking, and I think there's been putting emphasis on the diversification, on linkages of the extractives to the rest of the economy. And that is the mindset that policymakers are increasingly shifting towards.
Now you're saying that resources are not necessarily bad, but yet we do see that a lot of governments, they still struggle to manage resource wealth. Why is that?
They struggle managing certain aspects of the agenda, and I think you could argue the same for other industries. But you're right, there are short-term things that need to be managed. One such thing, and we've seen that from different people and from different angles actually, has been the question of cyclicality. These characteristic cycles where we see the prices going up and down, and that applies both to oil and gas and mining as well. And cyclicality is relevant to economic development for a number of reasons. When the prices go up and down, it's difficult to understand the value of your assets, and you see societies that sometimes feel that they're richer, wealthier than they actually are. And that translates as well very practically into the issues, for example, budgeting. It becomes very difficult to manage economic planning when your revenue stream fluctuates up and down. We tend to be very impatient, and I think rightly so, with governments failing to manage cyclicality. The truth is that the public sector companies have struggled just as much. And we've seen a lot of value being destroyed, for example, in the last commodity boom, either for overpaying for assets or missing opportunities. Just there is one of the key dilemmas of the industry, perhaps one of the key ironies of this industry, which is the public sector, governments, are under political pressure to consume when they should actually be saving, which is when prices are high, and the companies are under investor pressure to save when they should actually be investing, which is when prices are low.
Why does the industry have this characteristic? Why the cyclicality?
There are a number of reasons, and I think we've had excellent explanation in the talks, but there's one key factor, which is that the extractive industry, both oil and minerals, they respond to changes in demand. So the supply response is very inelastic. That means it takes a long time to respond to changes on global demand. Bringing the production from an oil field into the market or a mine into that could take years, if not decades. And what I think is very interesting is what we started to think because of these characteristics. Could we change this cyclicality by, for instance, means of policy or techniques or even technology? And this, in principle, could sound like a science fiction proposition. The truth is the oil industry is already doing that, and we've seen with the introduction of shale oil and gas in the United States that the response has been much quicker. We're not going to see the end of cycles, but the elasticity has diminished. It's become much more elastic to respond to changes in demand. And what we are seeing already is that the amplitude of those cycles is already shrinking.
Let's move into investment. We have asked in a number of talks what matters to investors.
And the response been consistent all throughout. Predictability. That is what we hear from investors. Predictability. Frankly, it's not surprising. This is a very capital-intensive industry that needs to create a lot of value to pay ever-increasing capital costs. Companies estimate that value is with business models that are populated with assumptions, from geological assumptions in terms of what is the volumes that are going to be produced, to price assumptions and cost assumptions as well. The investor needs to believe that those assumptions are going to hold in the long run, not just in 5, 10, 20 years, but even 50 years. In a way, worse than knowing that your cost structure is suboptimal is not knowing what your cost structure will be.
Nick, thank you very much for taking us through this first year of Raw Talks.
My pleasure.
And we won't stop here.
We will continue, of course.
And to keep up with the debate on extractives and development, join us at rawtalks.org. Welcome to the new debate.